Cryptopsy, what the fuck happened? Here again, Tim from Burning Shadows. I forgot all the bands. Eyes and More, Fade to Black, Recently Vacated Graves, and probably a few more. I'm here with Mike from Recently Vacated Graves, True Zombie Metal, and Eyes and More, and Matt from Nothing.
I would like to be referred to as my proper name, Matthew Dick.
All right, Matthew Dick of Podcast Them Down fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it on over to Mike.
All right,
because he's got something. He's got something to say.
Okay.
He fucked my. Whoa! Who cares?
I think the best place to start is just to introduce Cryptopsy and kind of their legacy.
All right, and Matt, it is safe to say that you know nothing about Cryptopsy.
I mean,
so this is
no
good.
More than everybody else.
No. This is good. Like, you know how like in movies, the movie Waiting, for example, they have the intern and it's his first day, so it's an excuse for lots of exposition.
Okay, so I'm like, I got you. I know exactly who I am.
So
I'm like naive character that has to be explained everything.
Exactly.
You're gonna
so
die.
If I said none so vile to you, you wouldn't react to it.
You're going to die at the end of this episode. That's the only problem.
Sounds like some kind of vial.
Perfect. All right. So you're our common man.
All right.
All right.
Every man, Matthew Dick.
All right. Go ahead, Mike. I'll stop interrupting.
All right.
Hey, Mike, I was thinking...
God damn it. All right. Cryptopsy. Cryptopsy, to put it simply, is a technical death metal band from Canada.
Sorry.
They're from Quebec, though. So.
Oh, je regrette.
So.
Que dommage.
So they started in 1988, and they had a demo around 93, and I've got like my notes here, so I've done a little bit of pre-research here. I don't just have this all off the top of my head, but I think walk through the first albums and talk about kind of like the lineup at the end of the first two albums. Okay, so they had a demo put out, got them some attention, and then they released their first album called Blasphemy Made Flesh, which is an awesome name. Real
quick, for Matt's benefit, the name of the demo was Ungentle Exhumation.
Ooh.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That's both evocative and disturbing.
So then Blasphemy Made Flesh was released.
Yeah.
In the 90s now.
So, Blasphemy Made Flesh got them more attention, and then they released None So Vile. None So Vile is fantastic. It's one of my favorite death metal albums. It's super fast. It's brutal. The riffs are catchy, which you wouldn't necessarily expect out of, brutal technical death metal, but there you are. Some of my favorite songs, like of all death metal, are off of None So Vile. But I want to talk about the lineup here because there are a few people that are interesting, and I'm going to talk about the vocalist and the drummer. Let's talk about the drummer first. Flo Mournier, who I'm sure I'm not pronouncing correctly, is the drummer. And Flo is like one of the greatest death metal drummers ever.
Do I make you Mournier, baby?
God damn it. That's pretty good. Flo, he plays extremely fast and extremely technical. Like everything he does is like outrageous.
Okay.
So I believe he's a pretty big creative driving force in the band as well. I'll go over the guitarist because it gets important-ish later. But John Lavassier, Is the guitarist? Yeah, I Lavassier.
Lavasseur.
Lavasseur. Okay, sorry. The bassist I don't know as much about, but one of the people that I think is very important to talk about is Lord Worm, the vocalist. First off,
Great name. Great name.
Fucking great name. Lord Worm is like he might be the most unintelligible death metal vocalist I've ever heard. And I, for the most part, can't understand death metal vocals. Lord Worm is more unintelligible than normal. It more or less doesn't sound like he is. You can't detect the boundary of words when he's screaming.
Could you demonstrate? Could you give us like your best approximation of that?
Oh God. I'm trying to think of the Crown of Horns. The way it begins is like.
So it kind of has like a "Who Let the Dogs Out" quality.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's very. It is barkish, like the way he does shit.
Okay.
I love the albums he's on, but he is probably not the best vocalist ever. But he's very prominent in None So Vile, and None So Vile is so good that it doesn't matter. The vocals don't matter. So at this point, Lord Worm leaves the band for the first time. After None So Vile, he leaves the band, and they hire Mike DeSalvo and release Whisper Supremacy. And Whisper Supremacy is where I was introduced to Cryptopsy. It was like I was first getting into death metal. And among the albums that I got was Whisper Supremacy. Whisper Supremacy.
Whisper Supremacy.
Yes.
Supremacy. Does that mean you're the best at whispering?
Oh, I don't know. I never really thought that hard about it, but I guess you're right. You're a whisper master.
You want to hear the new song that my band made?
Whisper Supremacy. Fuck, God damn it.
Sounds like a Calvin Klein fragrance.
Oh, it does.
Now I'm picturing Johnny Depp. Le Supremacy. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So, Whisper Supremacy is a fantastic album, I think. Song, it kind of continues in the same vein, or it kind of goes further with the brutality, I think, than None So Vile. So there was a little bit more in terms of, I would say, things that are vaguely musical than None So Vile. And I feel like in Whisper Supremacy, it's just pure. It's more in the realm of pure brutality. I'm sure somebody's going to argue with me about that, but it hits a lot heavier. But Mike DeSalvo, the new vocalist, Mike DeSalvo is, I guess he was from hardcore bands, or he had a very hardcore style.
Ooh.
So. He has a he sounds just kind of. He sounds like he's always taking a shit. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Like, he's like, it's just this real grunty, exertion type style, which is divisive. So we're at two vocalists now that are basically not the best suited for Cryptopsy. And despite the fact that Cryptopsy has basically never had a good vocalist at this point, they still put out good music. So after that, they had two more albums before the Event Horizon, which we'll get to. They have In Then You'll Beg, which I didn't listen to a ton of, but it was also with Mike DeSalvo. And then Lord Worm comes back, releases Once Was Not. So Once Was Not was better received than and then you'll beg. So they this whole time they're doing tech death, and brutal tech death, all this sort of thing.
So is just oh, go ahead, please.
I was
please.
just gonna say, do we know why they left?
Why Lord Worm?
Why
left the
Lord
second
Worm
time?
left, and why Bro Guy left the second time?
I don't know why. Okay, so Lord Worm left the first time, I believe, due to medical
citing
issues.
health issues.
Yeah,
It says here.
I don't know why Mike DeSalvo left. But Lord Worm's Lord Worm was on Once Was Not, and then he left again. And it looks like there is some disagreement on his leaving. At that point, I think Cryptopsy said he was fired, and then Lord Worm was like, "No, I was just doing. I had some planned for health reasons. He left the group earlier than planned for health reasons."
So, among Cryptopsy fans, is this like a Van Hagar thing, or they're like DeSalvo Cryptopsy guys, and then Lord Worm Cryptopsy fans? And is the dream always to have them both on stage, but that will never happen?
I think there is actually a bit of that, but I don't think the vocals are enough of a draw for anybody to give that much of a shit.
Okay, because it could be like any guy with a mouthful of marbles.
You would think.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. Once Was Not was released in 2005, and then The Unspoken King. Then it happened. So Cryptopsy releases The Unspoken King. So there were a number of news stories before the release of this. One was new vocalist Matt McGahey.
I like him the best.
Yeah.
It's another Matt. Is that why?
I hope his middle name's Dick.
So he had. So this vocalist replaced Lord Worm, and he was in a band called 3 Mile Scream, which, looking at their Metal Archives page, has them classified as metalcore. So there was like, this guy's definitely a lot more metalcore, deathcore oriented. Not really sure what's going on here. And then the next thing that drew kind of some pause was the addition of Maggie Durand, who is a keyboardist. And in technical death metal, that's kind of a weird fit. There's not a whole lot of room for keyboards in tech death. I mean, maybe for some atmosphere here and there, but I don't know that you could really argue for having a full-time keyboardist in a tech death band, right? So there was definitely some like, what the hell are they adding a keyboardist for? Some of the message boards they posted in at the time was just like, what is going on? So they release The Unspoken King, and I bought it and I started listening.
Well, it has a good name and a good cover.
Yeah. The name is great. Yeah, the style and everything. The album art is pretty awesome.
Yeah, but then some asshole switched out the CD.
So, looking at the names of the titles, it looks like a tech death album. It's all like demons and evil and being destroyed by Satan or whatever the hell it is. But what happens in The Unspoken King versus every other album is that I guess they decided to use Matt's clean singing ability for the choruses. So it's weird. It alternates between tech death. So anytime that it's not singing, it's fucking tech death. It's some of the most complex they've ever written. And then you shift to these choruses, which are clean sung, melodic, slow, breakdown-ish. It is bizarre. It is a complete abrupt heel turn. There was no indication. This wasn't a gradual shift. There is nothing before this that indicated they were even interested in this direction. There is a 3-year gap between Once Was Not and The Unspoken King. But, there was a... Let's see. There was a 5-year gap between And Then You'll Beg and Once Was Not, and they're more stylistically similar than once was not in the Unspoken King. So I don't know what the fuck happened, but basically the metal community at large, for what, as loath as I am to refer to them as a monolith, was like, what the fuck are you people doing? So Cryptopsy, Flo Mornier released a mock track, or Cryptopsy, I guess. So Cryptopsy released a mock track called It's Dinner Time, poking fun at the group's former fans who have slammed the band's recent shift in musical direction. This is from Blabbermouth.
Oh, no.
So basically, Cryptopsy started being like, no, fuck you. We're going to do what we want to do. And yeah, so it's a horribly bizarre album to listen to, because it's not even like it's consistently one thing or another. It goes just in an entirely different direction than you would ever have expected Cryptopsy to go in. It's fucking garbage. It's unlistenable. Just to editorialize slightly, I find them to be like Between the Buried and Me in this particular album, where it goes from moments of brilliance to garbage, like absolute just gutter slime in moments, and it ruins the song. So 4 years later, they put out Cryptopsy, and it's tech death again. With Matt McGeachy. So they basically just had this...
Just call him Matt Scotland.
High quality, massive dip, return to form. And just ever since, it's been back to tech death.
I think it's Matt McGeachy.
McGeachy. It's like Tom McGeachy's. That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Matt
You have
Tom
to make
McGeachy.
sure you press the button or he dies.
So,
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say a good Metal Archives is not without its problems, but the average review percentage is often a good good yardstick or meter stick for our worldwide listeners. For what a band's best album is. I usually don't agree with it exactly, but generally the worst albums are rated lower. So Blasphemy Made Flesh and None So Vile got average reviews of 88%, and they're kind of up there in the 70s and the 80s. Except for And Then You'll Beg, which got a 58. But The Unspoken King plummets to a 31.
I mean, it's real bad.
And basically,
real bad album.
all of the reviews call them sellouts. Because remember, this is, they went metalcore when everyone was doing metalcore. So there's a review by Caspian posted on April 18th, 2008, who gave them a 1%.
What?
He says, one thing I've learned in my in my 9 years or so as a metal and music listener in general is that selling out isn't always as bad as it seems as long as it's done right. He goes on to say the good selling out would be like Metallica's Black Album, full of short, catchy songs, incredibly commercial and polished, but it's designed to be enjoyable and catchy. And then his other example of selling out is In Flames' Horacle. But he acknowledges that one could argue that In Flames existed for the sole purpose of making it big. But then he basically says, this is as bad as Celtic Frost's Cold Lake.
Which is a bad album.
Which will probably be on another episode. But he says, almost a lazy attempt at selling out. There's no attempt to be catchy and make things enjoyable and sugary for the first-time listener. Instead, the band just forces its formula, which in Celtic Frost's case was getting quite tired at that point, into the style of music that's popular at the time. In Celtic Frost's case, the end result was a rather terrifyingly bad version of hair metal, a disastrous decision for everyone involved. The old fans rejected Celtic Frost, and there were no new fans to pick up the slack because the attempt was so dire. Needless to say, Cryptopsy fell into the bad sellout category. This is their Cold Lake, except that it's done in an even worse genre.
Yeah.
And he goes on. I recommend reading the rest of this review.
So, at the time, I didn't really take it to be a sellout album when I heard it. I mean, deathcore, metalcore were definitely more popular than death metal was. But, reading this review, he references, like, it's been a while since I listened to the album. Maybe I should have listened to it before this.
No. Don't put yourself through that.
I listened to all of was it Metallica and Lou Reed's album? I could listen to.
How'd you do that? How'd you do that? That's another episode we'll do.
That's a self-loathing. It's just pure self-hatred.
Laurie Anderson didn't even listen to that album all the way through.
But I remember this going between tech death and weird deathcore moments. So I mean, it would be like blisteringly fast and technical, and then just drop the ball on purpose repeatedly. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was much more by the numbers deathcore than I thought it was. But I mean, it is a very bizarre change. But yeah, it's saying it's an even worse genre. Death metal fans don't like you changing shit. You're gonna lose. Goddamn, the whole point of metal is like or not point, but like one of the interesting facets of metal is that it has stayed the way it is in spite of it waxing and waning in popularity over the years, right? Like, there's a sort of like fuck you, I don't care, this is what I like thing going on, and when you're literally antagonizing your fans over changing to a genre that is very maligned in the metal, the true cult metal community. It's a very dire stance to take, I think. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened with this album. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe it was a sellout, but
here's
strange.
Another review by Crahy on April 18th, 2008. 2%. The review is titled "Jump the Fuck Up with Cryptopsy."
Oh, man.
And then
This is amazing.
Imperial reviewed it on the same day. 13%. No idea. Who are Cryptopsy trying to appeal to here? This is easily the most bizarre case of sellout-itis I've ever witnessed, only being second to Nocturnal Rites' Far Fall from Grace at about this exact same time last year, with a once respectable death metal band ditching a large portion of their deathly influences in favor for a quasi-modern songwriting style that does nothing but give me a migraine. New vocalist Matt Scottish is really into what he's doing, but he isn't very good, plain and simple, boasting an atrociously bad set of clean vocals alongside some shitty tough guy chorish vocals and a generic deathcore yowl that could probably attract lonely cats if utilized under the right circumstances. And while keyboardist Maggie Durand is very capable, she is barely used at all on this album, making many a disgruntled Cryptopsy fan wonder why they bothered.
So yeah, I can't.
And then, like you said, the next paragraph starts with, but the most puzzling part of this is that this still kind of sounds like Cryptopsy in places. And it goes on.
Yeah, like that right there. I don't recall the keyboards on this album. They were not pronounced. So why hire a full-time keyboardist for that position when you could just use backing tracks? I have no idea. But yeah, it's a real. I can't think of as many like 180s musically I can't think of 180s this severe other than Cryptopsy, except for maybe Cryptopsy's then shift back.
Right.
Whoa!
Now, I will say I saw them live for the first time, and it was after the follow-up to the Unspoken King. And Matt Tamagotchi sounded fine. The only thing that pissed me off about that is that their bassist was 3-finger picking, which there's nothing wrong with that technically, but Cryptopsy's so fast that in order for the bass to really be pronounced at all, you can't play as fast as the guitars. So he's playing fairly slow, but it's just watching him just slowly, methodically play this mid-tempo bass line, always alternating his... It looked more like he was practicing than playing.
Oh,
Not that metal bass is all that interesting.
Right. Like I said on a different episode, no one cares about your bass player.
But it was a good show, though. Like they did great, and they didn't play anything off of the Unspoken King. So that was even that I recall. So that was even better.
seems like a good call.
Yeah. So there's nothing else I can think of that's quite like that wasn't done out of like pure, like we're just trying to get out of. We're trying to get out of a contract or something like that. For that, I will bring up the band Yattering. If you go into Metal Archives and look up their genre, it says technical brutal death metal early, experimental metal / trip hop later.
Trip hop, nice.
The story goes that basically they were like, oh fuck, we have one last album in our contract, we need to get out of this. So they released 3, and it's not nice. It's not good.
On the Wikipedia page for the Unspoken King, under critical reception, it says one critic remarked that the album is an unsettling experience. It is literally like listening to a deathcore band trying and failing to replicate Whisper Supremacy.
Oh, that's just mean.
But I mean, like the thing that you have to remember is that like Cryptopsy was and is superlative. Like what they do so well that seeing them go from like throwing darts at a dartboard and hitting somewhere around the bullseye to throwing it into a patron's eye across the bar, that's very jarring. Like you expect them to at least get in the vicinity of what they were trying to do, and it's so far from it. While having Cryptopsy-ish moments, I guess to be fair, but it's just a very different album. It's a very different style.
What I don't get is them getting mad at the fans for not liking it. You know, like, you got your fans because you sound one way. You can't be mad when you change your sound and then lose fans. You know? I think it's dumb. Like, how full of yourself do you have to be?
And there aren't many musicians that can do that.
I feel like you have to be Michael Ockerfeld, you know, going, oh, I can do whatever I want. And everyone has to like me, you know.
I mean, like there frankly just aren't many musicians who can pull that off, like a genre shift. I mean, like the most noteworthy one who's done that is probably Taylor Swift, right? Like legitimately, you know, she went from like country to pop. I mean, it's not that big of a shift, but
well, Doug could speak more to this, but Alice Cooper rode every popularity way. Every his album very much sounds like the year in which it came out.
That's true. That's very true.
And yeah, but I feel like after his first few hits, you know, no one really cared about him, you know. But
right.
But yeah,
Feed
he was able
my
to do it. Frankenstein.
Yeah, which is very musically different from. Yeah, okay.
I mean, Devin Townsend is able to pull it off, but he tends to spin off new bands that are lent credence by him.
Right.
When he goes too far off the rails. So, like, Strapping a Lad was like super angry, and then he had his solo stuff, which was eclectic, but had like kind of a common thread between them. Then he put together the Devin Townsend Band, which more or less was a continuation of his solo stuff. Then he did the Devin Townsend Project, where he was like, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. But by that time, he had kind of been so like musically different that his fans are like, okay, yeah, whatever you're going to do, just do it. We'll buy it or we won't, but we're not going to rip your head off for it. Cryptopsy, yeah, just ain't that band. You can't do that in death metal. You can't.
Right.
Was that the
The kids' TV show? You can't do that in death metal?
No, it's like the tagline, like, it's musically different.
Oh God.
I like it. So, yeah, so much for ever interviewing Cryptopsy.
I mean, I still love them. They're a great band. It's just that album is something else.
We could get Lord Worm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into it.
Good luck on that. Yeah, let me know when you schedule that one. I'll be here.
Or who's the other guy? Nicky DeVacolo or something?
I don't know that there's anything else to say about it. It's just
I don't think there's anything else we need to say about it.
Yeah. In the rich tapestry of Cryptopsy's musical output, it's the shit stain that draws your eye.
Ugh. That's just gross.
Yeah, but it's a good way to end. Smash that like button and subscribe.
And wash your hands.
And wash your hands.
So have you ever been listening to an album and you were like fucking speechless? Because that's
yes. Yes.
When I first listened to the Unspoken King, I'm just sitting there like, there's a few albums that have evoked this. I'm a massive Strapping a Lad fanboy. The New Black, which is their final album, I fucking hate it. I hate the album.
That's another episode.
But that one is interesting. But actually, I could talk at length. I can easily talk at length about that.
Correction, you will talk at length.
Right? Why didn't we do that one?
Yeah, I don't even need to do research really to do.
This will be part of his like Cryptopsy diptych. There'll be a triptych, and we'll actually culminate in getting Lord Worm on the show.
Perfect.
But yeah, like with the New Black and with the Unspoken King, it's just like I just don't get it. Like, am I wrong? Like, but
no, it is the musicians who were wrong.